Hello, I'm Robert Bateman, and this is the Privacy Corner, where I talk you through my top 3 picks for privacy developments each week. And thank you, as always, to Privado AI for supporting the show. So this week, 15 US state attorneys general have written to the House of Congress criticizing the American Privacy Rights Act, the second attempt at a US federal privacy bill. The UK's Ministry of Defence has been hacked, quite a worrying incident. The press is saying it's China, the government is not, so let's see what the discrepancy is there. And in Finland, there has been an €856,000 fine against a company that required customers to create an account before making a purchase on their website, and for not having a retention schedule. A pretty big fine there, Finland's biggest, I think, so let's see what went wrong. So first up, this letter from Rob Bonta, Attorney General of California, representing 14 other attorneys general, criticizing the American Privacy Rights Act. They say that it should be a floor and not a ceiling. What that means is it should enable states to build better privacy protections on top of a minimum rather than setting a limit on what states can do, as the bill currently proposes. So we've got 15 states signing this, I guess 14 because DC is there and they're not technically a state. California, Connecticut, Delaware, Washington DC, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, and New York. Now, only 4, by my count, of these states actually have a comprehensive privacy law. We've got 16 or 17, depending on how you count them. We've got other states like Washington with some very strong health privacy laws. Many of those states are not represented here, which I find quite interesting because those are the strongest privacy laws in the states, and this is all about how the APRA would strip attorneys general and state authorities of some investigation and enforcement powers. So they do say some nice things about the APRA. First up, they like the data minimization stuff. That's very, very strict and kind of confusing and not terribly well drafted. I did a LinkedIn post about this last week, which you should take a look at if you're interested. Strong consent requirements they like, critical protections for minors they like, but they don't like how it preempts state law. I mean, that is going to be what this bill lives or dies by. Last time around, the American Data Privacy and Protection Act, the preemption issue was the main reason that failed. So, for example, they say some of these new laws are giving Americans the right to opt out of targeted ads via Global Privacy Control, the GPC. That's true. It's not that many of them, though, and the APRA does extend that right. Well, it would extend that right to all Americans or everyone in America. The point that the attorneys general here make is that people who currently have that right under state law would have to wait for it an additional 2 years. It's a little bit, I mean, that kind of gets at the balance that has to be struck here. We have some Americans waiting longer for rights that they have under state law versus all Americans getting that right a little bit later on. So the letter also says that the law would strip states of their kind of flexibility and agility. So in 2003, when states started enacting data breach notification laws, biometric identification was not a big thing in the US. Now it's everywhere. All the states had to do was amend their data breach notification laws to add biometric information to those, and that protected people as far as that type of data went. The letter makes the point that this kind of quick, nimble amending of laws and rulemaking as well would not be possible if we had the APRA. They basically do not like losing their investigatory powers under the bill, and they're worried about handing some power over to the FTC. Again, this is a very tricky issue, and it's fair enough to say that the bill should be a floor but not a ceiling, I think. If that is what kills it, many people in states that do not have strong privacy law, which is still most of them, will be quite aggrieved. So very difficult issue and not going away. It could kill this bill again, like the last one. Next up, in the UK here, our Ministry of Defence has suffered a data breach, and it's resulted in the breach of military personnel's contact details and bank details, and in some cases home addresses. Now the media is reporting that this is probably China. The government hasn't said that yet, and they might do, but there's a good reason why they haven't pointed the finger officially yet. So we've had Grant Shapps, the Defence Secretary here, saying that it's suspected to be a malign actor and they cannot rule out state involvement. Earlier this year, the UK did officially blame China for an attack against the Electoral Commission, and they also said they were almost certain that China was behind attempted attacks on members of parliament, cyber attacks that is, critical of China. So those accusations came after long investigations, confirmation by the National Cybersecurity Centre, and the amassing of evidence. The government needs that before it can point the finger officially at China. So we could have maybe next year, maybe the year after, maybe sooner, sanctions like we did in relation to these other two attacks, but not yet. The payroll system was managed by a contractor. Of course, that probably doesn't reduce the UK government's responsibility as controller here, but there will be some serious questions asked about what the security controls put in place by that contractor were. Lastly, in Finland, the Data Protection Authority has imposed an €856,000 fine on an online retailer for two things. First of all, they required people to make an account when making a purchase. Second of all, they didn't have a proper retention schedule in place. Now, before we go into the details, just take a minute to appreciate the beauty of the written Finnish language. If you're watching rather than listening, you can see an extract from this decision. No idea what it means, but I just love this kind of wall of K's and R's and A's and U's that you get with Finnish. If you're listening, you're missing out. I apologize. Now back to the data protection stuff. So this company is called Verkkokauppa. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, probably not. They sell computers and software and so on. And this is a big fine. I think largest imposed by Finland. Second was 750,000 a couple of years ago against a debt collector. So this is nearly $1 million we're talking here. But this is a big company. I hadn't personally heard of them. They turned over €543,000 in 2022, and they have nearly 2 million active customer accounts. So there are two problems here, as I said. First, they require online shoppers to make an account before making a purchase. That's not uncommon, I must say, on the internet. You're often forced to provide an email address, make a password and so on before making a purchase. And second, they only deleted account data once the customer deleted their account. Other than that, they kept it indefinitely. So the controller responded, the GDPR doesn't say that we have to delete account data at any particular point. It doesn't even say technically that we need to have a retention schedule. So we keep it for as long as the customer wishes. Now the Finnish DPA did not like that at all, and the one problem kind of exacerbated the other, forcing all these people to create accounts and then keeping their account data indefinitely. So this was a breach of Articles 5.1e, storage limitation, and 25.2, which is data protection by default. So that's a default element of design and default. And the company will appeal. As I say, I think this is probably quite widespread online. Quite a lot of companies probably do require account creation, and they probably keep the data for as long as the account's open. this company is going to put in automated process to delete inactive accounts after 6 years, which is the kind of statutory retention period for tax purposes. But the Finnish CPA didn't seem very happy about that either. I'm not sure if that's a translation issue. By the way, shout out to DPEL, who don't sponsor me, but they do provide a great document translation service which assisted me with this one. You can see my Finnish language skills are inadequate, so I needed a translation here, and it's pretty good. So that's all from me this week. Thanks so much to Bravado AI for their support, and I'll see you all next week.